Hi.
Hello. Welcome to Bali.
Thank you very much. We are here today on a very special conversation
Yes.
that are going to be captured, and it is time to mention the stories from two people that have been in a relationship with two figures, two leaders in the spiritual communities. And we are here today to speak the truth.
Yes.
We're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
How do we start?
how do we start
To
this
ma-
conversation?
to mention that we don't have a plan, we don't have a structure, we don't have questions. We're just going to roll as a channel what needs to come through
Yeah.
to be spoken out.
Yeah. And just to mention it, the purpose for this, it's really us to come back to our power and our voices and to speak our truth. That's the purpose of it all, and to spread awareness, really, because it's been a long time in silence, and we had our reasons for that, but now it's time.
It's time, and I'm so happy that we are doing it together. Such a interesting thing that in parallel we had these stories going
At the same time.
at the same time, at the same copy paste things that are usually happening in spiritual communities.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that things
Which
are
turns
repeating.
out to be so common. It's crazy.
Copy paste.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not coming with from the place of anger or revenging. We are not here to put someone down and rise through that. We are here to just authentically speak the truth, the real, the facts.
Yeah.
That people are, I'm sure, on the other end, people who are watching that, they have been waiting for these stories to come up.
Yeah. So, well, my name is Sigrid and
Anastasia Armanova.
and should we share how we met?
Yeah.
So we met in 2019, right?
Yes.
In a KAP kundalini activation process facilitator training, which I was holding with my ex-partner. So that's when you were trained in KAP and where we first met. Then we've been seeing each other a few times since then, but been apart for about, what is it, 5 years? Yeah.
5 years. That's summer of 2019 when I was trained in KAP modality, and I was one of the first 30 people in the world that Venant Wong trained. And I was so honored, I was so inspired because this work has changed my life.
Yeah.
I was pioneering through the world to Russia, India, I remember Africa, bringing that and speaking and inspiring people how impactful and life-changing experience it was for me and for many. And then we met in September 2019 on a bigger class. And I remember those videos and pictures me and you had.
Yeah.
And I always felt a special connection with your purity because I resonate on that quality of the energy, right?
Yeah.
And
Same.
it was significant, our encounter.
Yeah.
And then we just, boom, flew away to our individual stories, being partners, being spiritual wives in my side, to that leaders, figures.
That's how it goes. So do you want to start sharing? So we're going to share our stories, and maybe you go first, because me and Anastasia has been through a very similar pattern. And I think, yeah, we can relate a lot to each other's stories. It's even if it's different, it's so much coming together that is like, it's just like you say, it's copy paste. This is happening all over the world, and it's huge in spiritual communities that these kind of things happen. So,
And to be honest, I know and I feel how both of us are right now in this threshold, right? Even 3 months ago, we would be hesitant and holding a little bit back because so many people go through similar stories and feeling ashamed
Yeah.
what they have been through and embarrassed even to speak up, speak out, and having us both sharing in the same place. I was telling you when I reached out in March of this year, I was telling you, Sigrid, I've been in these shoes. I understand like no one else.
Yeah.
I'm here, sister. We're going to do it. We're going to do it together. And like I'm telling that for people to understand it wasn't easy. It's not easy for us to come out. And let's go straight to the stories.
Because when you come out, just to highlight what's happening coming out of a toxic relationship like that, that is also including, you know, energetic work. It's like, it's not just a toxic relationship, it's beyond that. And coming out of this, I think a lot of women can relate, because a lot of people have reached out to me and are like, I've been through the same thing. And so coming out of that, there's a period of not being able to speak, I would say, and a period of confusion, a period of guilt, a period of, you know, all like grief, anger, like all the stages. But I think we both realized in those difficult moments that it's not a good time to talk about this from that place, because it might just create more fear, or it might not come from the right place. So that's why we both took our time to properly heal, and are still healing, I would say, but we're in a much better place than we were back then.
And to mention also, I remember reaching out to you and I was telling you, Sigrid, I went through that 3 years ago, and I took time to heal properly, although you never know like when it's enough, when it's complete the healing process, right? And then you're ready to speak. I tried to attempt to write the story on my social media, part 1, part 2, part 3, and people were like, where the part 4? But it definitely got me a little bit on that frequency. I healed, I forgave, but I didn't forget. And like bringing that story up for me, it was messing with my mind. So also at the same time, I was thinking, whole this year, I was thinking and debating inside, should I speak about it? Should I tell this truth or I shouldn't? What if I tell the truth and I will take away the experiences that another women have to go through with that person, with my ex, right? Almost like they have to go through this pain and suffer. What if I like, no, don't go, don't, the warning. And it was that inner dialogue. I was having a lot of conversation with spiritual elders, I would say, and a lot of people advise me, don't do it, Anastasia, don't talk about it, move on, heal, do your life, you'll be so much more happy. But I know that if I didn't do it, it would be like still that like gestalt is not closed, and I feel the responsibility, the duty, authentically to share the part of the story.
Same.
Because how bizarre that those two teachers are still rolling and growing, an amount of people who are drawn to that teachers, right? To these two figures. It's just expanding and expanding, but not a lot of people know what's happening behind the closed doors.
No. And that feeling has been there for me as well the whole time. Like, I feel the need to speak about it, but all the time, not yet. There's always been something that, maybe this would be more harmful than impactful. And whenever I decided from the start to, because it wasn't me who spoke first, it was actually other people who started to speaking up, and I realized this is much bigger than just my personal story.
Yes, it gives me goosebumps. It's global right now with the energy of last year, this year. A lot of things are coming up. A lot of leaders are being exposed on social media. Huge.
And by realizing that this has impacted so many more than just me, this is not just about my personal relationship, that this has impacted the whole, community, that made me feel more responsible, that I have to speak about it. But in the beginning, I decided very early on to just don't do anything if it's not like 100% yes. So I stayed silent for a long time, and it was very frustrating. Like, I kept so much inside of me, so many secrets, you know, so much to carry. And my only thing that I knew that I needed to do was just to take a stand and remove myself from that, from KAP. And that was all that I was sure of in the time, and the rest had to come later. And I guess here we are.
You were authentically choosing yourself.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult, as it was very difficult for me 1 year to stand out, step away from the organization. And I was wholeheartedly devoting all of my life to that energy, to the KAP. I was associated with KAP. And it was intimidating and difficult to step on my own, to start, but I could not step away any longer, because where it was all going, it raised just some questions in my consciousness.
Yeah. And what made you take that step? I don't think we have talked about this.
We didn't. You know, when a few years later, when I was trained, it was COVID. It was a pause on that. And then it was a lot of trainings happening. And suddenly I remember was receiving the email that it's going to be level 2 with non-dual state of consciousness transmission training. And to me, it was like, you cannot be training people to non-duality. It's either you already go naturally into the state of consciousness, or it will take time, but you cannot just expand non-dual.
No, it
So
depends completely where you're at in your journey. So people think they're getting something, and they don't even understand that that's not it, you know?
yeah, it's like almost like the marketing thing for me. It was like, I admired Venant for how he was, how in my idea, how I saw him. And then I thought, it's like life presented the possibility of temptations. I have no idea what was happening when he was training the level 2, and level 1 was trained by 5 people.
4 people.
4 people, and I thought, if I came later to the KAP when it was already in that structure, level 1, level 2, I would not want to be trained by 4 people. It's like a different sauce. It has to be from one channel, from one transmission, that attunement. But it's like 4 different people. It's the combination of that. And maybe it's just my judgment, but I thought it's not spiritual, like in the spiritual propriety, it should not be like that.
No.
Especially trained with non-duality. It would be the same. I do my own workshop, Massive Orgasmic Activation, which is called MOA. And some people call me, Anastasia, can you train me to MOA? And I'm like, it's untrainable. You either go in your evolution, your steps, expansion, growth, and go into that cosmic divine bliss orgasm, or you can't. Right now, you cannot. And I don't want to. I'm not tempted by money or fame to go this route.
No, and I love the non-dual, the non-duality, and I love to have that as a part of the trainings and teach it and help people go there.
Because you are already there with your consciousness in non-dual.
But not in this, like, you cannot, like you say, you cannot go for 5 days and think that I got it. And now I can teach it. It's just not how it works. Like, anyway, this is not really the topic.
Yeah, and there are so many people who don't get it, and they just go. It's like,
and it becomes very just diluted and misleading. I would say misleading. Yeah. Anyway,
it was like
there's a lot to talk about.
Sidewalk.
And we might even continue on this topic regarding specific, issues, I would say, in this field. We have so much to talk about. But let's dive into what we've been through. And maybe you want to start with your story.
I'd love to. So in 2012, I had my first awakening. It was kundalini glimpses of rising. And I had a clear idea that I would love to meet my future partner who would be a teacher, because I potentially knew that I would be growing into that. And I understood that I'm not there yet. It took me, 6 years, 7 years of the spiritual training, different seminars, workshops, whatever I was learning, to develop into meeting the teacher on the same level.
So you
And
knew intuitively that that was about to happen.
somehow intuitively I knew that I would be teaching, and little did I know that I would be working with Kundalini and bringing that to the world. Back then I just had an idea, and I knew I'm not quite there. It will take time to develop. So in 2019 I was trained into KAP modality. It was a highlight of my 33rd birthday. And then 4 months later, I meet accidentally, right? No coincidences. That spiritual teacher, spiritual guru already at that moment. And I remember going to his website before meeting that person, go to the website, and there were a description of his bio, blah, 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 whatever the information. And then the last sentence, devoted to Jesus and Mary. And for me, it was like, ordained, this is my person. It was like, this is, I don't know how I have to meet, because Mary and Jesus and Magdalene have been very, very dear, and the resonance of the frequency. It's in DNA, it's an astrological chart. So I was guided through this energy. And I arrived to California, and it's the second time when I met you. It was the beautiful workshop you were holding. And already during that workshop, I was at the parallel going to the satsang of my ex, Shivananda Swamiji.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yeah, I was like hyper excited. I think I was hovering, I was levitating from that energy, and like it was love from the first sight. It was the recognition, like it's the beginning of the beautiful beginning. I say always, it was movie worth of this scenario, fairy tale. Remember 2012, I had an idea, and it was like divinely orchestrated. Boom, here it is. And it was such a match in that transmission that he was doing, eye gazing and darshan, like how some spiritual gurus are doing from the Hindu tradition. And I was amazed how I already for 4 months were holding my classes, working with Kundalini, was on such high, and seeing that teacher, that human being, so selflessly serving the energy to the younger, elder. It didn't really matter the amount of love. The energy was pouring through him. It was, to me, it was like, I know I'm serving, but this is so much bigger than me. And I'm like, I'm going to serve that, to serve on a bigger scale. I was like, I'm going. And at that moment, he was already dating someone. He was seeing a young woman, young lady. And somehow things turned that he chose me. As far as I understand now, she was not quite ready for that lifestyle. It's the traveling the world, it's doing that work. I was ready. I was waiting for that. I was manifesting that. And it was bingo, bingo, bingo. Second time we met. In September, we met for the first time. Second time we met in November, and we got married.
Wow.
It was a dream come true, fairy tale. Little did I know about narcissism, that they do this really fast. I thought things like that exist.
Phase.
Yeah, things like that exist.
And go from woman to woman to woman.
In beautiful movies they show, right? It's fast, love from the first sight, or college sweetheart or school sweethearts. So I knew that it exists, and why doesn't it exist for me? It exists for me too. Boom.
And I mean, we're just like floating in love, romantic,
naive, pure, open-minded, open-hearted, ready. And I just got myself into the beautiful beginning of the continuation of the nightmare, hell-like of the relationship. And to mention, it was a COVID time, and I was joking like, forget about COVID. I went through my personal hell. I was living in hell, walking in the fire. I was having fire on my body, amputation without anesthesia, knives thrown into my back. I went through it all. But I didn't know it in the beginning. In the beginning, it was I guess a lie, because I was mentioning that I am one person relationship, one and one. I'm not polygamic, I'm monogamic. I will not accept if you have something on the side. I will never be able to do that. Like, are you clear that it's just going to be us? Because I already see how many women are worshiping and getting excited and maybe like falling in love. Are you sure that it will sustain that way that I see it's Shiva Shakti? And he was saying, yes, it's just us. Even though it's going to be a lot of women looking at me, they will know that I have you. And it was, for me, it was the everything I wanted to hear, right?
Yeah.
I'm coming to this relationship knowing that I grew into that. It was not my guru. It was not my teacher. It was a match, Shiva Shakti. He was saying it's going to be Shiva, it's going to be Shakti, it's going to be Shiva Shakti.
You were going to be on his
Shakti,
level.
Shiva. Yes.
Yeah.
And then marriage, spiritual marriage in India was also pretty. To mention, when I came to his live, I saw an establishment, serious establishment organization already. It was not just the beginning. It was ongoing movement, the mission with ashrams, with a sponsor who was providing everything to maintain the lifestyle of the guru, traveling the world and doing his teachings and satsangs.
So you started to also work for him?
We
no?
were doing it together.
Yeah, okay.
But imagine, I just see how many people came to the organization and they were selflessly like supporting, like forgetting about their sides. It's such a high mission that you like, I want to do it. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than all of us together. This is it. And if he's bringing that, I'm here to support. That was my approach. And it was about New Year's of 2020, like a month later. And we traveled to India, we traveled to Africa, Poland, Italy together, doing this work. It was literally a dream come true.
Yeah.
Already serving that energy, serving that awakening, helping people to heal. And then we were separated because I was going to Russia to get my visa to go to the Europe, and he was already in Europe and Poland holding his retreats. And somehow I started to feel like not settled, our women intuition. I'm like, interesting. Something is telling me something, like downloads, like it's not as pure as what's happening.
It's the moment you're out of their energy, you just start to you start to clear
guidance.
Yeah.
From you, from your higher self. Wake up, red flag, beam, boom. And I remember getting into the conversation with him, like he's sending me videos, he's sending me pictures, how so many women around in this ashram, like not men, in Poland, and they're staying up until very late and dancing in the darkness. And I'm like, this is the teacher position, and everybody's like mingling, like it's like no what is it, English word for subordination? I don't know if it's the word in English, like a little bit of distance, that boundary. There is no boundary. Like everybody, especially my ex is the Italian, everybody like amore amore. He loves everyone, and there is no distance. And for me, it was too close.
Did it start with distance and then it turned into this, or was he like this all the time? I guess saw pictures. I remember him like holding people.
Yeah.
Like, they were like lying on him and like.
Yeah. You know, this thing is, it was part of his darshan. That in this part, when I saw that, he was out. He was in transmission, like holding, as if it was, they say, Jesus hug, right? It's like love pouring through his eyes. That's what I felt too. That's why I came to the picture.
Yeah.
Ordained to serve that. But then in that Poland retreat, I'm in Russia, it's New Year's, and he doesn't respond to my calls. He doesn't connect. He's serving, and I understand. But I feel something is off there. You know, there is something is like mixed feelings. And I ask. And to tell you, the moment that my previous relationship, it was not coming from me as being a crazy, jealous wife, creating like being superstitious and like always like seeing, feeling like paranoid. My previous relationship, I had a boyfriend who was working with models. And me being 5.2 feet, I was in that surrounding, never felt less because my man, no matter top models, Victoria's Secret, beautiful, beautiful women around, and my man was with me.
Yeah.
And it was never broken, never. And I never felt any insecurities. Somehow in these stories, I felt like something is off. And I remember
the jealousy, it's all created.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I didn't find myself as a jealous person or suspicious or any of this, but somehow it builds, by the loving and withdrawing and the loving and
Love
withdrawing,
bombing.
it creates this whole
psychological hook also somehow. And since that January, I understood that I was like in long distance relationship, texting. He was explaining, he was blaming me, I'm jealous and this and that. I was observing, and I'm NLP trained in the School of New York. And I was analyzing myself, like kind of still going to that route of matching with words, although I mastered the communication skill. And I saw how the guru, the teacher, is dropping to the conversation, like not very conscious, not very awake, not very evolved conversation. And I'm like, I remember that red flag, but I still kind of dropped into that. And I started to become a little bit sarcastic. And I was like, so I was like in that trap, though it's not a blaming him. I chose to be in that trap.
Yeah.
And things started to accelerate. It was the 6 months of the distant relation because of the COVID. I had dreams, I had insights, I had guidance. And I just asked him to let me help him with social media, because I was in that trap of texting, him lying to my face.
And you knew he was lying.
And he knew he was lying, and still, like, I don't know, part of me was choosing to go because it was trauma bond. It was not love that I was like, oh my God, the union made in heaven. It was love bombing, trapping in a trauma bond with a narcissist. And me being an empath, I had no idea, zero, who are narcissists.
Yeah.
And so I asked him to help, let me help you.
Yeah.
Passwords to the social media, Facebook. I can do the targeted advertisement about your workshops, etc. My intention was to see, because I was already in paranoia. I was already in that story. Do I believe him? Do I believe my insights? What's happening? I was confused already in that narrative.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like self-help from the state of, I need clarity. I need to see that he's doing something wrong.
Because all you want in that moment is to find some clarity in what the fuck, is going on. And you do anything. And you feel shit about doing it.
Yeah.
But you do anything to find out the truth in that moment, because you don't want to believe that this amazing, amazing person and story and everything is not real.
Yeah. It's like on some level of consciousness, you see these red flags, but the feelings are, especially when you're on a long distance, you are investing in energy, in idea. It's not like, maybe if I saw him and we started to live together earlier, I would be gone earlier. But because of the drama and the illusion created, and then this part of it, like seeing him idealizing, is my pattern, seeing goodness in people and believing to the last moment that things can change. So I got myself into like, delusioned. And to the point that summer of 2020, Polish women who were staying in Italy with him started to call me one by one on a video call, Anastasia. Luna Devi, at that moment, my spiritual name, Luna Devi, your husband had sex with me. Her sister's calling, Luna Devi and Anastasia, your husband had sex with me. And they're crying, and it was like a split in my consciousness. I understood that it was conceptual. I understood he didn't rape them. He didn't like invade himself, but he manipulated with his charisma to, this is a sexual activity, that's the healing, and
you will be God, you know, you will have enlightenment.
you're chosen, you are blessed to have it with me. And it was an orgy with 4 different women. 2 of them were sisters. And to say the truth, how fucked up the situation was, that I was in pain and trauma already, but I knew his good side, his other, the soul side.
And this is the problem.
And I
There's
went
always
to
also a good side, and that's what creates the
illusion,
mindfuck and the confusion.
And side of me was like in shock, in pain, and suffer, and grief. And another side, I went to Italy to protect him, to stand by him. And it was because if I felt at the moment, if it doesn't happen, if I don't go,
he'll be ruined.
He will be ruined. He will be put in jail, because some husbands and boyfriends from Polish side, they were like already going to the police and start to report. And I was like, oh my God, maybe orgy happened, but it was with your agreeing to that. I know he is not violent. And I chose to go to Italy to protect him.
And you still did not see his manipulative side of how he went into that?
No, he was on his knees begging for forgiveness. It will never happen again. And I arrived to Italy, and I take his phone, because I'm now obliged to. I have the right. Show me your phone. And I see sexting with my friend at that moment from New York. And I was like, how could you? Looking into my face. And
your friend?
One of the person who was receiving KAP from me at that moment. KAP. And then doing that behind my back and sending all of this like sexual videos, pictures. And it was, but you know, it was like, the more I was looking for it, the more I was finding, as I was like in that drama, pain, addicted to find something painful. So I stay in that for like 1 year. And I was thinking, Anastasia, what should happen to you if I walk away? Like, you know, like subconsciously, people who recreate these experiences, there is a part that attracting that, right? Some side of it, like, why the fuck did I stay in that for so long? And even in that phase, in that moment, in that September, October, I came to Italy, and I found the physical space for our ashram that we found together. It was a beautiful property on a 60 hectares land. It was just so beautiful. And I gave him the idea. You know, I went to the Esalen Institute in California, and I was seeing the structure, how they do it, how community people live there. They pay a little bit of money, they help. It was a beautiful idea that was coming through me, the inspiration. Let's do it. We can create the shifts, people cooking. And it was such a beautiful, on the surface, thing we were doing. 30 people lived with us. I remember cooking for 30 people, like soup and stews and pasta. And then we take turns, and we clean, and we reorganize, we decorate. And it was a plan to plant from farm to the table. The idea was beautiful. And to the moment that I was even overstepping my own things, when I was going on an intimate level with him, like it was a guru and his wife in the public, right, outside, doing the classes, whatever. And when we go in the bedroom, it's like narcissistic abuse, and I'm crying, and he's like, "You're 5 years old. Why are you crying? You're like this 5-year-old girl." It was like stepping over me to the point that I was, my weight was 37 kilograms, that I was dying inside, and I was holding the space as a directing, organizing in my masculine side, which is not my side. And I was becoming more rigid, and they were calling me Generale Bianca, the white general. That's my remember,
that's so far from you as you can come.
Remember in the training, me like with this like, oh my God, angelic frequencies and light the, and I was like, no, regularly it's the
But this is what they do to you. Just take
rules.
parts of your soul until you're completely so
And
far away from yourself as you can possibly be.
yeah, and you're so confused, and you don't hear your intuition, you don't hear your inner guidance, you don't believe yourself, you don't believe your guidance. I was confused that maybe he's right, because he was like, you don't get it. I love everyone. And then he was like, no, please forgive me. It will never happen again. I want to stay with you, just you and me. It will never happen again. And so I believe it again. And then things happen again. He's having affairs, multiple on text messages. And little did I know about narcissism, how they are sex addicts. And he was a porn addict as well. Like it was his drive. I don't have anything against sex. It's a beautiful thing when two people love each other. But when you are actually being controlled by your lust, and you cannot do anything about, like, you are lost and you like, whatever, whoever is here, let me fuck.
Yeah.
This is a different story. And for like around 6 months when I was living in and out in the ashram and traveling a little bit, but I was dead inside with no spark, and thinking sometimes, I think maybe he's right, because he's more evolved and he don't have the boundaries because he's so expanded. I am the one who doesn't get it. And he was like, you jealous, that's why it keeps repeating for you. I'm the master, and that that lesson is coming from me to you, for you to little blocks in your mind to unpack and
How
liberate.
Convenient. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh.
And I remember in 2021 when I went alone to New York, and I was in my energy serving with kundalini with my people who were in New York, and coming back to my essence and having the insights, especially exactly what you said, when we are out of their field, like almost there is no egregor, and you start hearing more of your guidance.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing other couples examples of how things should be and can be. What the heck? I was not preparing myself for 6-7 years for this shit. Although it was visually beautiful, everyone wanted to be on my place. Everyone wanted to be the chosen and step over me so they would be with him. But he would never leave me if I didn't leave him. It was very convenient to keep doing things behind the closed doors, what he was doing, but keeping his wife as the security cap. He's holy, he's divine, he's married. He's so pure.
And it looks great for them to have a wife and even a child, because they look normal. That's the whole, point behind
Cover up.
it. Yeah.
And they keep doing what they're doing, and nothing stops them.
Yeah. And they can use you, and you can use, in my case, the child to, for the cover up to their benefit. They can play the victim and cry about, pretend that you took the child away or whatever it might be.
Threatening.
Yes. Pretend.
Blackmailing.
They just, we're just puppets in their game that they're using. Yeah.
And my story, I would say, I was thinking like it's like huge, but time went 3 years now, and I've heard so many stories after my story.
Would you say it has escalated?
Escalated to the point that I remember when I was leaving him, and it was so difficult for me being an empath and connecting to his good side. I was closing my eyes and I was feeling my pain, but I understood I am going back to Italy to pack my luggage. And it took me like 10 days. I even got sick subconsciously to prolong that phase, because I knew if I leave, it's forever. I never go back. So it kind of subconsciously like prolonged that phase. I was in bed, like almost dying in bed. And I remember closing my eyes and feeling my pain, opening my eyes and seeing his pain like a lost kitten. He was so confused that I'm leaving finally. And he told the community, he said, Luna Devi is leaving because Baba, his guru, told Shivananda Swamiji to be in brahmacharya, to be in a celibacy, to withdraw from all sexual activity, maybe even potential to be in silence, they take the ascetic way to be in silence, but it's BS, BS, BS. He was having sex with multiple women. Even after he dropped me at the airport, he went that day right after airport to have sex with another girl. And I have text messages, screenshots of the text messages, and people are still like, no,
They
it
still
doesn't
don't see
happen.
it.
No. And we don't go low. We don't like, hey, this is a proof. It's enough for me to see it, to have it now, and stand my 2 feet, acknowledging all sides to go through this story, but also
it's
feeling
very
empowered
difficult
to
and
speak.
frustrating, but at the same time, I'm like, also maybe like half the people of KAP, they were very sensitive, even people outside, and they just knew. They like, it was enough that people started to leave, and they were like, I knew it. Like they had the intuition, but they didn't want to believe it. But that was enough, and I didn't have to say anything. People contacted me, and they just knew. And then there's the people who still has to go through that, I suppose, and we just have to trust that.
Yeah, even right now we are briefly we're speaking about how it will go, and reminding ourselves we are not doing it for people to change their minds, because if they need to go through this route, they will.
They need to,
but we cannot not speak and bring the truth for those who are still kind of in a threshold.
Yeah. And seeing so many people confused, like this is my biggest thing now, like so many people contacted me, and in the beginning I did not reach out to anyone because I still was not ready. Like even if I wanted to speak, I couldn't, because it was a whole mess, it's like this and that, and I would just cry, and it's like it's not coming out clear. I also knew that if I speak now, people are gonna think that I'm just this
Revenge, jealous
girlfriend, and that's the game he was gonna play. He was gonna tell that to people. So
and he does.
That reason,
I'm sure he does.
Tell
it.
I know he adjusts his story to whatever is needed in the moment.
To close my story and continue with yours. It's the seriousness to the level of how many women were suffering after me. And to the point that a few weeks ago, maybe 1 month ago, I went online. I was being interviewed with my testimony for the national TV in Italy, speaking my truth, because the movement started with some women in Italy going to court and filing cases, and there is an investigation going with FBI even about my ex, Shivananda Swamiji. Somebody told me like maybe 6 months earlier about one YouTube video where one young woman from Tunisia has killed her kid due to whatever story about my ex. And 6 months ago, I didn't tell you that. About 6 months ago, I thought, no, it's probably some people who are revenging. And I was the one who was telling him, be aware, those people who are admiring and worship you right in front.
Them. Same for me.
They would be in the same extreme hating you. Be aware. And I was like, this is probably those kind. But then I saw the video, and this woman is in jail testifying in front of court. And she was confused and manipulated that the world is finishing, whatever he's using the narratives, the world is ending and we need to save the souls, we need to go to ascend, so you have to save your kid, something to kill the kid. So it's the seriousness of that level. How can it accelerate? And it's going.
How would you say that he's without empathy, right? Like classic narcissist, and he does not care about these things whatsoever.
He doesn't, and he says, I'm healing through sex, whatever he's using. So that's why a lot of women go in there like, I'm going to be healed. And I'm like, what the fuck? You didn't heal me for 6 months when we had sex every day.
He traumatized
every day. How come I was not enlightened if he was so like healing through that?
So you went through this whole stage of, just being drawn into that. It escalated. How many years were you in this relationship?
Like 1.5 years.
Only 1.5.
Yeah.
And this all happened within this time. Oh, wow.
And without therapy, I would not be able to come out, because I was drowning, confused, lost. I didn't have suicidal thoughts, but you're like, nobody understands you. There were no women on my out story when I was finishing and ending it that took my hand and said, I got you, sister. I understand. In the spiritual community, like, I'm like, what are those ideals,
And
like
this
concepts?
is interesting, especially this is a big disappointment for me. Like the older woman who you kind of expect should know better, and you kind of expect them to
Wiser.
be wiser and support you. And those have been the worst, I must say.
Yeah.
Like they don't even want to hear it. They're like just blaming you for.
Oh my God, I know this story. I reached out to one lady who was.
And you love these people and you expect them to hear you out and understand, and they just don't want to. They just need to keep shut. Yeah.
I reached out to one lady, kind of expecting, I know no expectations, but I was like, you're older, you're wiser, you are much more in a spiritual path, longer, right? More experienced.
Yeah.
And I was like pouring my heart out, saying what's happened. She's like, yes, 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 yes. And then she went to the ashram, and she, with intention and expectation, she would be the one next to him. And for me, it was like, I told you how this person is, and it doesn't change. It's the pattern.
Yeah.
Disappointment a little bit. I mean,
yeah, it's heartbreaking. I did the same. I told the first person I had been told to leave my house, so I was alone with my child, and I panicking, like not knowing if I'm gonna have money, where we're gonna go, not knowing anyone, just complete panic. And there was this one of the trainers that I loved very much, who I kind of resonated with a lot, and I just could not see this coming. And I tried to start telling him, a little bit. And in that moment, I was not going to tell anyone at that stage. I was just like, I thought I could really trust this person. It's like, who do I tell that can kind of bring some support?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I tell this guy, and he's like, yeah, you should not talk about this. And yeah, I think he said something like, we've been discussing, his darkness as well, but you should not be talking about this because it's going to ruin KAP. And that, like, that has been very hard to forgive.
Yeah, it's like you're losing faith in humanity.
Yeah, and you're so scared to speak, and that's what you get to the first person you tell. That was just heartbreaking. Like that week was just, that's when hell started. Like, luckily I had two other amazing women who had my back and who understood what was going on. It was hard for them. Like it's hard for anyone to realize to what extent this is happening. It's really difficult to describe, because in my case, it was more like seeing the manipulation that's happening, and you cannot really prove anything, So it took a lot for people to actually like realize that.
Open their minds to that. But I would love you to also start from the beginning, because when I came to KAP, I was admiring Venant Wong, how humble, down to earth. And I always used to joke that, he's the teacher, like Steve Jobs. He wears the same shirt. It's like have been in the laundry for like 50 times. You can see it's like not fresh, but it's clean. And he's like gave up like this worldly stuff, and I admired that. And I just went on. I was never like in touch with you guys, only with you a few times on the text messages, but I was not depending. I was free to go on my own. And then I started to hear things. And in March of this year, when I reached out to you and you told me your side of the story, it was a punch in my stomach. I was traumatized, and I was disappointed of the teacher that trained me, and sadly to say, the majority, the collective consciousness, is still accepting whatever they do on a human level. It's okay. It's the darkness, the shitty part of the world of a human being. It's not any great, but the teachings are good. The energy is beautiful. It's helping, it's healing.
It doesn't work that way.
I want to believe that there are people and people that are in the capacity to bring something phenomenal and magical like that, but their human side is integrated.
Yeah.
It's the congruent.
It's extremely unusual, I would say. People who go this like high, this fast, for the wrong reasons. I mean, some people might not have a reason, but we know in our cases that the intentions were bad from the start. It's like they're being tested. There comes a point where they're being tested, and most people fail that test.
Money,
Power,
lust,
sex,
and power.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you go there, and then your temptations. Let me see how you will stand, how you will in your higher self, right? And I don't think that either my ex or your ex, it kind of like changed them. The money changed them, or the power changed them.
Yeah.
I think they already had it. It just enhanced what they already had.
It kind of exploded with all of this.
Showed the truth in them.
Yeah.
And to the point that they didn't
They were
care.
eaten by their own shadows. That's how I see it. It was always there. The red flags were there from the start.
Yeah.
But it just like completely took over.
And if we still agree as a collective, if we don't make some action, even this conversation right now is going to be exposed out there. It's an action ready to see the change, because if we don't, we still agree to this normalizing. It's okay. You can be a saint, but you can you can have this holy work helping like Jesus Christ. I don't know. Oh, Jesus Christ. We're gonna speak about that too. But I'm gonna be like messed up as a human being, creating the pain to like suffer.
And what's the point then?
Yeah, what's the point? It's gonna repeat itself. Younger generation would be thinking like, I can do whatever.
You cannot keep, in our work, in KAP, in kundalini activation, whatever, you cannot keep your personality apart from the work. The intention is everything. If there's an impure intention, we're no longer working with life force, we're working with our own distortions, and it will affect the people. I had like 200 people reaching out to me. It's just not the same as it was in the beginning, and I'm sure you can see this.
Absolutely, that's why I'm like, this is KAP. I don't want to be associated with that. No.
It's not what it was, and people who come into it now, they will never experience that purity. Like, it was just incredible, and that's the whole reason I was so, it was my whole life purpose to bring this to the world, because of that. Like, it had so much potential, and I should start from the beginning.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, but this was my second heartbreak. First like breaking up, but seeing that my relationship was based on manipulation and not love, it was kind of like, okay, it wasn't that bad. I just needed to get out. That was my whole like, okay, I just know I need to be free from this.
7 years, Sigrid.
7
years.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the story from the start, because the first years was amazing. It was, there were red flags for sure. There was triggers, but I was still very much going through my awakening, just, experience different levels of consciousness and just going really deep. And that was everything for me, like to have that gift. And this is the tricky bit. You're still grateful to that person for that gift. At the same time, all credit should not go to him, because I know a lot of it was also me. I haven't realized this until now, but
own it, girl.
Yeah,
own it.
Yeah, and okay, I go from the start. Okay, so we met in 2017 here in Bali. I went to a session with some girls who already did this kind of energy work, and I didn't know he was going to be there. So I just feel like there's a male energy working on me, and it just like, when it was very like, I don't know what to call it, like not aggressive, but it was like intense, very intense. And I was like a little bit like, oh, what is this? But there was like so much happening in my whole body, just kind of went off. And I knew nothing about this back then. So he would be talking in such a way, like he knew so much. He had all this experience with transmission work. very confident, like funny, joking, charming, all of these things. It was not the kind of person I would be interested in, and I wasn't at the start, but I was magnetized. And it was, I suppose, because of the energy and also, you know, the trauma bonding eventually. And I knew nothing about this at the time. And so from there, it was just like I told you earlier, it's like this amazing time of connecting to source, just having all these amazing experiences. You start having dreams, you have this, you live in this fantasy world, really. And still looking back, that was like the best time of my life, and start to explore, you know, the non-duality and just explore these realms. And also just like, it felt like finding magic, and you're like, this is going to help the world. Like, that's everything. It becomes everything, because you can see like a few years ahead, this is just going to like take over. And it is, in a way. It is happening, but in a different way maybe than expected. Anyway, so yeah, I get more and more involved. Eventually we get together. I was resisting it for a long time, but somehow, you know, he managed to get me. And looking back at that, it felt like being groomed into a relationship, pretty much. Looking back, it's like my body knew, my intuition knew, like sexually, I could not surrender at all. I was just like freezing, and you know, our sex life was really bad. My body knew from the start. And yeah, looking back, it's like intuitively I knew that this is not, you know, right, or my person. It took me about a year to start to trust him. Like, he managed to turned everything against me, you know, like, it's because your heart is not open, it's this and that. And you just trust them, because you know, they know,
of course.
you see them as your teacher. And yeah.
Oh my God.
So we had a couple of years together. It was amazing. We would travel the world, we would offer this work. It started to grow. People just showed up. We didn't have to do anything. People just kind of showed up. And just, you know, seeing people, like, you know, it was helping so many people. Like, those years, the first, I would say 3-4 years, was just pure magic. And he would always, you know, have me sitting next to him, always kind of, just have me there. And then under COVID in 2020, we did a training, a level 1 training, and then I got pregnant. And so we were about to have a child, and this is where it started to shift. Because this is also classic. I know this now. I didn't know back then that, you know, when a narcissistic personality, when they're having a child, then the attention is away from them and on the child. So I started to experience how he was kind of passive aggressive. I remember being 7 months pregnant. We went over to Costa Rica to live there, to have a base. And, you know, we didn't really have anywhere to go on the COVID. So we ended up there. And I remember coming there, and I was like up all night having anxiety attacks in the bathroom, just like crying, because he would be angry with me or not speaking to me, and I didn't know why. And you know, he wouldn't answer why. He wouldn't. So there was all these little weird things, but it was not happening. We had some of those kind of like, because I was so accommodating, we didn't have a lot of issues. You know, as long as I was just following him, it was okay. But there was a few times where I would point out that he cannot do this. And I was complaining sometimes how he was mixing his interests, you know, being interested in people in our workshops, and he couldn't mix that with work, you know, he had to keep that out of. So there was some of these clashes that happened, like red flags. Even from the start, there was this girl that accused him for things. I still feel very bad today that I didn't listen to her and didn't, because I know now what that feels like. So that came back to me, you know. But he managed to make me believe that they were crazy or this or that, you know, they're just going through the trauma and all kinds of stuff. So there were these scenarios every now and then throughout these years, but most of the time it was only us, you know, 24/7, just us. And I just more and more started to trust him and just wanted to support him. And so we had the baby. And about 6 weeks after, so this was an amazing time, being pregnant,
I remember
giving
your videos,
birth,
your
like
pictures.
home birth. Yeah, yeah.
So
It was
divine.
beautiful, like, really as like a highlight in my life. So that, of course, took over all the attention. And 6 weeks after we had Rio, he would just kind of go away into his room and never come back out. It was like, and he said he feels like, you know, he feels like it's taking away from his mission. He just feels like a provider. You know, all these things. And I would be very upset, you know, about doing it on my own. Like, I didn't expect having to do it on my own. And his approach were like, you know, the mother is taking care of the baby. The father comes in when they're like 6 maybe. And
months.
Years. And start to teach them things. And I'm like, okay, but your son is not going to know you when he's
What
6.
about sleep deprivation? Hello,
Yeah.
You have an infant.
Yes.
You need to rest.
I was up all night, you know, just like trying to put him back to bed, waking up every 2 hours. I was alone in a house with no car. I was like, you know, 24/7, just like honestly bored.
You would go psycho.
Yeah. I did go psycho. And then I would get blamed for getting angry. And it was, you know, it was not him, it was me. And I was completely desperate. But I also listened to him. So I didn't, I got angry a lot. I started to be more and more angry. Like, and I never get angry. So that started to come up. And sometimes I just had to, like, you know, just take him. I need to go to the back of the house and just scream. And I would just like, ah. And he didn't care. He didn't care. He would just be like, oh my God, like, and also like, you changed when you had a baby. You, yeah, I liked you more when you were quiet. He didn't like that I was playing with him and, like, you know, being a mother. So that started to happen. And of course, in the trainings, he would like hold him up and show him off. And I,
My God.
yeah, I know now that he struggled with the connection. He couldn't connect to Rio. Like, he didn't know what to do with him. And I feel sorry for him for that. But at the same time, yeah, I still don't know. I still don't know exactly, like, I know he cannot feel love as we feel love. So, yeah.
It's
anyway.
probably from the childhood when mothers are not giving the proper love, right? We can't blame, but we are the ones who are dealing with the outcome of all of the stories. We have, I have, you have, everybody in the world have some issues with their parents. But then some extreme situations create the psychopathic behavior that in a pattern harms a lot of people.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is where everything started to shift. And I would say that's also around the time the energy started to be twisted. Because, you know, there had been this whole thing about him wanting to be in an open relationship from the start. And it was a constant overstep of my boundaries. Like, I didn't want to, but I was talked into it. And I agreed to it in the beginning, and then I didn't want anymore. We took a break.
Like, both of you can go and have some relationship on the side.
Well, I couldn't. He could. But if I would even speak of a man that I spoke to, you know, he would be very angry with me. So I didn't dare to.
I'm sorry, how is it open relationship?
That's not an open relationship. But, you know, his whole view of this is that he's the teacher, he's the God realized. He, you know, he can have all these women but they should not have any other men because that's impure, Anyway, so this continued, and he would talk about these things, but I was accepting him, like, it's okay, if that's who you are, if you want to have open relationships, I can support that if that's who you are, because we always came to a point where I didn't want to do it, and then he would be like, okay, it's okay, then we don't do it. But he knew that if he would say that, I would be like, oh no, it's who you are. Okay.
Of course, it's against your
it's the whole
ideals,
game.
right?
Yeah.
Be true to who you are.
Yeah.
I
So
know,
the first year, there's a constant push over your boundaries, and so much, processing. But even this he would use against me, because he would say, it's the hardest thing you can do. It's going to make you grow and this and that. So I did it for growth, because he knew that's my biggest thing in life. Like, I just want to grow. I just want to expand. I just want to go deeper.
Yeah.
And so he would use that as a reason, that you have to go through this. And this is how it is. And he would use his teacher, Adida, as an example of, how it works. And that's a story in itself, because that also had a lot of,
Imprint.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. Where do we go next in
Yes.
this story? There's so much, but
Yeah.
okay, so we had Rio, then there was a request, like people wanted more, and Venant was really bored. He wasn't really interested in continuing, like doing any KAP. We didn't really do any. And I was like, I just wanted to do more. Of course, it's like my whole life.
Right? It's like it doesn't compute in my mind. When I came to the story, it was phenomenal experience, collective liberation, the good cause you do for the humanity. It's not just a group here, group there.
That's
and
everything.
Saying he was bored. He didn't want to continue doing that work.
From quite early on. So I made him do level 2, because people kept asking, like, we want more, is there going to be more? And eventually we created this level 2. And in this training, everything shifted. See, my mind is a little bit like, in what order did this happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, so in that training, it shifted, and I was put on the side. I was no longer, next to him. Obviously, he had always been doing the talking, but we had been equals in, like, doing the energy work. And I was kind of put on the side, and he would explore this different thing, and he did more of the, doing the eye gazing to the crowd. And this is when everything shifted, and the energy was different. And people would be, kind of forced to bow, and it was all this, and I too, I was like in a full, like, body prostration.
I've been there. I know that. I've been there.
Same, yeah. And I know now that a lot of people were repelled by this. I didn't know it back then.
Yeah. But it was to my disappointment, when I've heard from someone who attended level 2, how when I came to the picture, it was a simple, down-to-earth, very humble teacher that I loved and
adored. But that was also just pretense. That was never real. But that's how we all perceived it.
Then people put him on a pedestal, and he didn't mind, and they started to bow him, and I'm like, this is like my ex. I've been through this story before. No. The energy, the people that right now, the consciousness, it's old school. Nobody needs it.
No. And the reason everyone was so amazed and came to KAP is because it was not like that.
Yes.
Because it's just open and free. You can go and do whatever you want. And it's, so yeah, that was, but of course, like, at this point, we were so far in. So it was, we were amazed. We're like, wow, what is this, But now looking back, I can see the shift. For, at least for me, I did not resonate with this, but I tried to make myself resonate with it. And a lot of people have shared this with me as well. They're like, what's going on? Okay, I just do what everyone else is doing. And they kind of like group pressure. I think from hearing from people, like 80% of people felt this at some point. Like some people were like about to leave. And we had no idea. Like I was living in this little bubble where I thought everything is amazing. And now looking back of how the energy shifted there, and it became about this, it became about him, you know, being God. I felt that I thought I was going deep into the energy, but I weren't really, not like I did in the beginning. That was a whole different thing. It was still so pure. You went so deep. But here it's like quite a, you know, it's up here. It's like a superficial experience, and you have an experience of light, and you have this like, you just like experience God in a way. But looking back, it's like, what did it really shift in me? What did that do for me? What I saw in people was that they became addicted to that. And when they went back home, they had a fall. And this can naturally happen, you know, in spirituality. We all know that, going through the highs and the lows. But this was different. People were like, I no longer feel any joy in life. Like, I see no reason to live. There was like all this... and this, I didn't know about this until this year, obviously. Like I had no idea about what when people were going through.
To come up.
Yeah. So it turned into more like he became hungry for something. It was no longer just about the work. It was like he wanted the admiration. He started to be interested in the girls. And everything I found out this year, you know, is like apparently he was with someone in one of the trainings when I wasn't there because my son was sick. And then he would tell me about it and pretend as it hadn't already happened. And then he would go and see her and sleep with her. And I knew about this, but I had a son who was, I can't remember, a year max. So like I had no choice, you know, but I couldn't fight it. Like I was just desperate with my son who was very sick, and I was like home crying, scared he was gonna, you know, something was gonna happen to him, which was very convenient because he could do whatever he wanted in the trainings. And a lot of girls, okay, I'm gonna two specifically very pure, beautiful beings have reached out to me since that training because he tried to approach them as well, and he was in contact with them after. And they have just expressed like being very overwhelmed because he would work on them a lot, like put them into like an orgasmic state and this whole thing. And he would favorize people, and everyone saw this, you know, everyone knew in a way. And they just thought that that's how it is. But yeah, so these kind of weird things started to happen. I found out, you know, so after we broke up, this is when all of this, I found out about all of this because no one would tell me before. And I found out that he had invited someone to come to our house in exchange for level 2 and all these kind of things. So yeah, there's like all these stories. There's like a million stories like this. And yeah, so this started to happen. But yeah, at the time, I didn't know much about it except for the things he was honest to me with, you know, honest with. But there would still be like, from the start, there was always lies around it. It's like it was never open. There was always lying, denying, until I found out. And then he would like cry about it and play the victim and fix it, you know.
The narcissist copy-paste manual.
Yeah.
Same story.
Yeah. So, okay, so where are we in my story? It's a lot, but let's just do the highlights. So we get to a point last year where we had a training in Portugal, and he meets a woman there who kind of fell in love with him. We go to Ibiza and they start to seeing each other. And at this point, I started to see things, and naive as I was, I would tell him, I'm like, this is not who you are. Like, there's darkness in your eye. I would tell him, like, this is not Venant. Like, who are you? But I realize now that it was just him finally revealing himself. And I would tell him this, and he knew that I had seen through him. And he's like, you don't see God in me. Like, you're just not there yet. And he would start to, with a devaluation, just put me down and belittle me. And he told me to deal with it or get the fuck out. And at this point, having a child, being financially dependent, emotionally dependent,
how many trainings you did for like in 5 years that I know? It's a very expensive training for one person. You had like 30 people, 50 people. Did you have the support, the financial goes to your supporting your child and you?
No, it's like when I ran out of money, I put a little bit on my account, and that was that. And then I ran out again, and he would put a little bit. And I didn't really spend any money because I was staying with him, in our house. It was just food. Yeah. So I could shop a little bit. I could buy things, but I never had my money, and I was working for him.
I mean, because of you, it exploded, expanded, and grew to the level it was growing, attracting all of these women to the organization because you were doing a lot of work. I know, but is financially the compensation and like direct question when you left with Rio, you left that story. Is he responsible for the financial providing the support, being a father?
Well, yes and no. So he said, because I kept asking him, like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't even know if I can afford having a living next month. Like, we need to figure something out. And he's like, don't worry, I'll support you. But it was very like, because he was being so dismissive, he would just say that, but nothing would be sorted, So I just panicked more and more. And eventually I realized that I'm in a very dangerous position. I need to support, my son. And I couldn't leave the country because of the laws in Costa Rica. When you have a child there, you need a father's permission. So I couldn't leave the country. I didn't know if I was going to be supported for sure. I just had his word.
Yeah.
But nothing happened with that. So eventually I went to a lawyer to get some kind of agreement. And it took a long time to sort this out.
Ask for help. For your living situation, having a child.
Yeah. And he expected me to take care of the child. So I didn't really suddenly I was a single mother, just not knowing where to go. Obviously, it was a difficult time for Rio.
How is it on that level of God realized master, having lack of the connection and basic, fundamental, manly things to do? It's the duty. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be a saint. Basic, fundamental, providing for your child. You can have fucked up situation with the mother of the child, but you are obliged to provide and support.
Yeah.
If you are that holy.
So it's incredible. And he was in a high at this point. He had his new girlfriend. He was just realizing that he can get all these girls. So that was his main focus, that, who is he gonna be with next? Yeah.
Conveyor.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all he was focusing on. We were not in his mind at all. So while I'm panicking, eventually I went to this lawyer to pay all this money. And, my last money that I had, I had to put into a lawyer. And I was just in grief, in confusion, in grief, not knowing, is it good, is it bad, what's happening? So it was just a state of, my nervous system hadn't really been calm since I had my child, really. It was just, constantly... So I had been anxious, depressed for such a long time, and then coming out of the energy and everything is kind of starting to clear. It's just, that was the most traumatizing time. So obviously this mother instinct kicks in. So you just that's why I just went to a lawyer. Luckily, in Costa Rica, it's hard to find a reliable one. Luckily, I found someone who were caring a lot about children. They just wanted to help me and Rio. And they were helping me in a very beautiful way. They could have completely tricked me, you know. That happens a lot. But I was very lucky to find them, and they just like, they knew his type. As soon as I told them, they're like, we know this type exactly, we know how they work, and we don't want people like this in our country, so we're gonna help you. So I was just very, very lucky, and we suggested this agreement with him to pay for 5 years of child support, and then he could, you know, be free from it all, because that's what it seems like he wanted, you know, like he didn't really care. He just told us to go, and I couldn't go because I couldn't leave the country. So I was, you know, I was stuck.
Yeah.
So this went on for so long, and this was such a stress that this was just like also the reason I didn't talk to anyone, because I was scared that it was going to ruin this kind of agreement, and I needed to figure it out for me and my son before I could focus on anything else. So we I came to a point where my anger started to come. I woke up one morning, and also the male trainer that I spoke about earlier was involved with helping him with the lawyer.
The
and
level 1 trainer.
yeah. So, and then I started to hear stories about him as well, what he, like, relationships he had with different students, and
In a KAP organization.
how he, and there was, you know, there was just so much at the same time. It was
But
like
he
too much.
is in relationship.
Well, I suppose they were open.
Okay.
Or
But still, it's the teacher-student
relationship.
in
And
the
this was not
spirituality,
one person, and there was like girl after girl who would contact me and tell me things, but he would shut it down, just like threatening with lawyers, and then it got all shut down. And
narcissistic
this
threat,
was just
blackmail.
this was just such a big, because I loved him so much, like, and I still love him so much, and I see, you know, anyway, that just made me like, the disappointment, you know. And he would just rat me out to Venant. And there was this whole thing. So I just woke up this morning, and he started to like, put this up on Instagram, you know. He started to tell me to do things, and I was just like furious at that point. It's like, you have no idea what I'm going through. Like, I'm struggling to to figure out my
Survive.
fucking life here.
Yeah.
And you're telling me to post a video of you on Instagram, like, or his wife, or whatever it was. And there was just a point where I was blocking him everywhere, and was like, never speak to me again. Like, this is, because I realized that he had only ever been nice to me because he was sucking up, like, as he does to Venant, you know. And
the whole thing, I think, with level 1, bringing all these different people into the training, it's like feeding the egregor of KAP, the egregor, the energetical structure, with, it's not just feeding that energy to the descending to the people, it's also the filtration of the people, the persona, the identity, going back to that, and then it's spread out to everyone who's in an organization. So it's already like, going into the route. It's not spiritual not the spiritual propriety.
No.
In a way that, in a virtue of ethics and the high morals.
No, it's just all wrong. And you know, to find out about all of this is just traumatizing in itself. But then, I had this anger, and eventually it was just, you know, full on Kali rage. And I would just, under this time, he had asked a woman to come over to his house, and I knew about this, and I didn't really care. I didn't really care. I just wanted to sort my situation, and I didn't know. Maybe she's interested, maybe she's not. Like, I wasn't sure. This woman, fucking amazing. She saw through him. So he tells her to come over because she has potential. I saw the messages. Like, that's what he told her. And she admired him so much. She just wanted to come and learn, and she's like, oh my God, what an opportunity. Maybe I can become a trainer.
Purely, with pure intention.
Exactly. And that whole week was just him manipulating her into sleeping with him. you know, working on her heart, doing exactly, you know, what he thinks works for her to sleep with him and become his girlfriend, because this was the whole goal. Like, he knew exactly which woman he was gonna go for, and she was one of them. And so she was quite traumatized coming out of that. It ended up with a big fight. She contacted me and was like, "Oh, I'm a bad devotee," and this and that. And I'm like, no, like, what the fuck is this? Like, what happened? Um, and naturally, I would share my story with her so she would know that she's not crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And I regret so much that I didn't tell her, you know, before not to go. That's also like a big guilt. But in those situations, you know, I did a lot of things wrong at the time, but it is what it is. Yeah. And actually, her sharing with me how he manipulated her, like, and he would use me. He would be like, "Oh, Sigrid was so open to relationships. She was like, you know, having these God experiences when she would sleep with me." And yeah, he would tell her things like this. Then the next,
What did you?
no, well, because of the energy,
Yeah.
not because of him,
Yeah.
and also because of I
Your
had more
own
experiences
capacity
on
to
my
go there,
own than
exactly.
with him. Yeah. And yeah, also, you know, at the time I was, you know, just trying to please him, really. Like, anyway, so this was so helpful, and she saw through him. So she would start asking things just to test him, and then realize more and more that he has nothing to offer me. He just wants to sleep with me. And she's fucking bright. Like, I just love her. And she would be the first person, the first woman who would defend me. Like, I'm forever like, grateful to her, because someone saw it and someone were like, "We fucking love Sigrid. How can you do this to her?" And she would defend me.
And
So
I can imagine
that was
how
just
important it was for you for the first step, for the feeling the fresh breath of the hope that you can get out, because your
Yeah.
organization grew to the level of like how many, like thousands of people you trained?
maybe 500.
500,
Yeah.
but then it's all of them and you alone.
Yeah.
Who would
Yeah.
there's a master who would trust you, who would believe
Exactly. And you know, sudden, but it was actually a lot of people. Obviously, I did not tell anyone. I didn't dare to in the beginning, but a lot of people actually did believe me. I would say 95% of the people who actually spoke to me, some have just ignored it, but
you afterwards?
yeah.
Yeah.
But the people who spoke to me, they were like, you know, like, "Don't worry, like, I believe you." And I was like, "Really?" You know?
Yeah.
And they were like, "I'm not surprised. I can totally see this."
Yeah.
You know? So that was kind of like
Yeah.
comforting in a way that people actually believed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized more and more that they're gonna believe me. So that was.
And you know, it's interesting thing to mention that I know part of the people who would be watching, they would be thinking, "Oh, it's just traumatized people that are drawn naturally to this narcissist, right? They like kind of recreate and attract, and they do that by themselves." Like how didn't you know? Like how didn't you feel it was wrong? Blah 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 blah. And to say, to defend that, when you are coming with a pure intention, with believing in high morals, in that purity, you don't have tools to survive and get out that experience. You are not equipped because it was not in the map of the consciousness.
No. And
You
I
were
was
trapped.
like brainwashed to think that I'm here to serve him and I'm going to be with him for the rest of my life. And that's that. No matter what.
Exactly.
So I asked him once, like, "Okay, so we can wake up every morning and you're going to just slap me in the face and I'm going to be okay with it." And he's like, "Yeah. Yeah." But yeah, I'm touching on a lot of different things at the same time. But this woman was a breaking point. Like, and this started to come out and people were like, "What is going on?" And are we out of time? Should we?
No, we don't.
It's good. Okay.
We're rolling.
Yeah. And
this woman was, repeat that again. Like,
yeah, so this woman came there for a week and got home and realized that this is just crazy. Like, all he wanted was to sleep with me. And at the same time, he had his other girlfriend who apparently broke up. There was a whole mess. And the day that she leaves, he reaches out to another girl that he knows is in Costa Rica. The same day as she leaves, just like, try with the next one. So it was just a bunch of stuff like this. Like every 4 days, I would say, there was a new thing. You heard something new had happened, and this from the past and from now, and it just escalated completely. And yeah. Okay, let me go back to, so when this happened, regarding your question about the money, and if he would support me. So I came to a point here with the rage, and I just told him that deal with this now, because he was ignoring me because he had this woman over, and this male trainer, I told him this as well, but he would just ignore it. And now, now he blames us for not telling people, but it's like, you didn't want to hear me, like, that was the whole thing. Anyway, I told him, yes, like, deal with this or I will tell people.
You had to
I had to sink to that level.
I understand.
To like, and
it's a
it was not
survival
fun,
mode.
but it's what I had to do.
You didn't have a choice.
No.
Don't blame yourself for that.
No, it's actually, I'm so grateful for that rage that came up in me. Like, it saved us, because then he would go and meet me finally, and we would sign the papers, and he didn't seem to care about giving away the custody of his son. It was just the money that was like an issue. But so I got an amount, so we're safe for a while, and now we can start over. So that was a blessing in a way that went through. Let's focus on the highlights of this. So
I guess I know the resonance in you and me are so passionate and compassionate and connecting with each human that comes to our classes, like genuinely, sincerely want to help and seeing their liberation and expansion and releases. And I just cannot
we feel them.
Not stop doing that work. And to know that Venant was bored with that, didn't want to continue. It talks a lot about a human who even started that. It's good that
because he does not care about people at all. No one, not even, I didn't think that I knew this about him, that he does not like to have people around and this and that. But it's not like he's sitting at home and being, meditating or anything. He's just on YouTube, like it's avoiding his wife and his son and, figuring out how he can have more of the...
It's like as if they are hooked to the entity or whatever. Some people were telling me that there's dark force that working through, and whatever it is, some people can really psychically attune and they feel, but it does feel like something is working through with addiction to keep it coming, that energy, and it's in ignorance. It's not in a sattvic divine blessing, elevating the consciousness. It's like kind of addiction, the pattern that in a lower frequency. The energy works, right? The people having some experiences, but the people who are feeling the quality of the energy, they know the difference. And they don't want to go back. And I wholeheartedly encourage our collective humanity consciousness to start paying attention whom you're giving your vessel to do the energy work. Who is this person? I was married to a guru, and I'm saying I don't care any longer. A guru, a saint, a teacher.
They're still
who
human
you are
on some
as
level.
the human being first.
I
don't care. You might not be in spirituality. If you're a good human, basic. It's beautiful. It's inspiring. You don't have to go in meditation to the caves to be a good human being with capital H.
Exactly. And that's the problem with these people, because they ignore their shadow side and they don't really care, and it's just taking over. The more admiration, that they get and attention, and they realize that they can do this and they can get away with it, the more it just like spreads.
That's, it's interesting how maybe last year I was watching the documentary about Yogi Bhajan recently, with Breath of Fire, with Guru Jagat story, Kundalini Yoga. I was watching Osho documentary and Bikram Yoga.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of similarities, and people claim the rape cases, etc., etc. But how bizarre it is, like 1-to-1, a manual on when they, masculine figures, are getting to the top and they being tempted, with seduced. Like, can you withhold your core and not to like fall down here? And so many women are being hurt and embarrassed to speak up.
Yeah.
And then they kind of canceled the guru, Yogi Bhajan, who brought up Kundalini yoga to the West.
Yeah.
And the organization even removed his name, right? It's already like started to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not about cancellation about human beings, but bringing the awareness that choose your teachers.
Yeah.
Choose who they are, what the
Yes.
deeds, how they are in a family, how they are in a human. And so many people would be like defending them. Oh no, I've met this teacher. They're not like that. They are beautiful, that pure soul, that divine love.
Yeah,
I had a great
of
experience.
course.
But nobody will know on that level if they are not close in the inner circle.
Yeah,
Inner
you're
circle
not going to
knows.
see their deeper levels of their psychology in a 5-day course. Like, what do you think? And especially after all this drama has happened, he's going to put on even a more charming persona to fool these people.
Yeah.
And then he would go home and talk shit about everyone. He doesn't care, not even about the closest people.
I mean, about Venant, the perception I had, I knew that how you say it, he likes people, but he doesn't love people. Or he loves people maybe on some level of idea, but he doesn't like people.
He can't stand them. I mean, only 2-3 months after we met, he would tell me that, you're bringing me down. Can you sit in another room? So this started really early.
I work with a therapist because of my ex. I'll transcribe you what he says. You are triggering things in me that I am not ready to face.
Yeah.
I'm in shock. I mean, we can joke about it.
Yeah, it's hilarious looking back, because now you see it so clearly. It's like, because I went to see a friend, a man that I met here in Bali, who is very good at seeing things, and he tried to warn me. And I came back and I was telling him that, I really love you, but I'm not in love with you. Which it is true. I did love him, but maybe not in that way. And he would it's okay, I know, it's all right. And he took it so well. But I can see now that was all pretend, because that came up later, years later. And that's when it started, this whole devaluation, like, go to another room, or your heart is not open, you can't even say that you love me, like all of these kind of things. And I would more and more start to think that, okay, there's something wrong with me, like I'm not open enough, and this and that. So it started early on. But
it's like they kept I can speak about he kept me in my narratives. He saw my naivety, that naivety that was like a weak part, but it was actually the purity. And he saw that he could not stretch me, and he played the game with me. But I remember when I was leaving, suddenly I saw the glare in his eyes that I'd never seen before.
Same.
He was like, but stay, you should stay. This is my nature. This is who I am. And I was for like a year telling him, Shivananda, please tell me this is who you are. This is what you need, and go this route. You can be like Osho, do it openly. When people agree to the polygamic relationship orgies, it's okay, you can do it, but be true to yourself. I think what upsets me, not what you did to me, but what upsets me to see that you're not true to who you are.
You're presenting something and then you want something completely different underneath.
And then
there.
It's that game. And then like, I'm confused. And when I saw that glare, when he's like, stay, this is who I am, this is my nature. And I was terrified that I never saw that. I didn't saw that. He never showed me. And then I saw the real alignment of who he is. And when I left, it just expanded, accelerated, created more pain. And I was joking that I said, you know, if my partner was having coping mechanism like self-destruction, like smoking, or like I don't know, like soap opera watching, something like binge eating, right? His own things, vector to himself. We could work with that. We can evolve. But even he agreed when the sponsor lady was trying to bring my ex to the psychiatrist who is healing the sexual pattern, sex addiction. He healed one of the top athletes in the United States. We had that case. We had that person to help Shivananda. And he started to agree, but then he changed his mind.
Yeah, because a narcissistic personality, they don't care. They don't want to change.
No. And then it accelerated to the point that I understood its vector from his persona to a lot of women. And he is using the spiritual law that lesson is coming through me, through the master, for you to learn. An excuse. But when I saw that it's a pattern and he will never be healed, when my therapist said, it will never change. You are dealing with a narcissist and a porn sex addict and mental abuse. Anastasia, it will never change. It was like a slap into my face, sober up. That's what you are dealing with. Like the person from expert. I needed that to hear for me to stop. And I could not be no longer in a story providing, supporting the energy of the Shakti, that balance, because they need the Shakti. They cannot, Shiva cannot survive and cannot thrive without the Shakti energy. But I could not support that. Him sitting in the guru position and lying to his community, to their faces. I was embarrassed when I was leaving. And he said, Luna Devi is leaving because his Baba, his guru, told him that like the Adida. This one is similar story.
They're always using
he had the guidance to be in brahmacharya, and Luna Devi could not handle that because he needs to withdraw from sexual activity. I was as if I was the one who was addicted. And that's why Luna Devi is going back to New York.
Like everything they tell you is actually about them. That's what they draw the inspiration from. You know, they tell you how you are and what's wrong with you. And you realize that they were talking about themselves the whole time.
And I was just crying, and I could not face people's faces because I was embarrassed for him.
Yeah.
Long story short, we can go on, and I'm sure there are many details and proofs. We don't even need to prove, like, things that can be public and exposed. That's just the two stories that are told from different perspectives, with our side of the story, our side of the truth, to bring awareness, to raise the consciousness, to give the inspiration that there is another route. We don't have to agree collectively, the teachings are good, the person is a little fucked up, but the teachings are good. No, let's choose different. Let's choose higher ethics, virtue of ethics, the decency, transparency. We are collectively going to telepathy. How can I lie to your face if you see through me? If you see my colors? We are going there.
But this, I feel, is also what's happening for us. This is what we can share now because we have seen this, we have experienced this. Like, we've been completely walking through hell, and because of that,
literally,
we can, in a way, be better. And be in our full power again.
it's meeting the darkness, it's meeting the shadows, it's going through fucking dark, I'm joking, dark nights of the soul, dark years of the soul, not just a night, but still choosing the light, not to be completely consumed under these egregors of the darkness and then creating all of these routes.
Yeah.
It's still choosing the light. We've been through hell.
Yeah.
And I hope this is going to be inspiring to many souls that are, you know, it's interesting how people like us, I always tell, like pure, naive, innocent, and childish innocence were perceived in a humanity like 20 years ago. Oh, you're living with your pink glasses on. You are not prepared for the world is cruel. Darling, you are too pure, too naive. And naive was like stupid, like you're not prepared. But how I am happy to see that the collective is coming to see the world through our lens, how we were perceiving it always, that naive awe, state of awe, the surprise, the wonder.
Yeah. 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 That is something I have not valued, but now can really value. It's
That's the strength, that's the power.
yeah.
When the power is powerful, it requires the subtle touch. It's not loud as screaming, yelling, justifying, proving. It's silent.
Yeah.
It's in a frequency.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
It is about the pure divine feminine, to speak the
Yeah.
truth, to face all of the shadows. Yes, a little bit of shame and embarrassed that we went through the low, but we did not have a choice to still match
No.
and to survive through that. But then the liberation came and the lesson is learned, and it's
Yeah.
like giving almost like a manual to a future generation, so that young girls in
Yeah.
their 20s that are
'Cause-
still in a footsteps to their spirituality, please choose wisely. I always say you have to feel the love that is pouring through the teacher, through facilitator. Feel it. It's not about conversation about realized Christ consciousness, love, unconditional love. It's about the frequency when they speak about it.
Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah. And it's not about going to just anyone under a specific brand, because each facilitator has a different
Flavor.
and that's beautiful. So
Yeah.
like feel into the person, and if it resonates, I don't even want people to come to me if they're not aligned with
In
who I am,
resonance.
because
Yeah.
only if they're aligned I can really like take them deep, you know, and I can really help them, and I can they can benefit, you know, on a deeper level.
And it's not a lot of people who are coming to us at the moment because the consciousness is not there yet to perceive. Some people need to go into the extreme duality, and it's going to be masses because it's kind of like 3D, all of the extremes, the duality.
Yeah.
And but it's shifting, it's supporting right now the divine. Let's raise wingtip to wingtip.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in a way what's happening now. Like I completely lost my inspiration in this work, and I disconnected. I never have been like, you know, disconnected as the last few years since I had my son and went through all of this. Like I was just drained of life force energy completely, and I didn't feel my power. I was just, you know, anxious, depressed, like in such a low. Every day I would go to the river, meditate, try to like figure out what's wrong, just to come back into that energy and be completely like, you know, like the gaslighting, he shut me out for 6 months. He didn't speak to me, and I was just desperate, didn't know why.
What? How long?
6 months. Oh, wait, let's see. So it was the training in Portugal. He met this girl, and he would start to put me down, and he would just ignore me. And this went on. We went to Bali, we went to Sydney, which was a little bit better because we were around his family, so it had to kind of flow there. Back to Costa Rica, it was straight down to hell. And I would like be at his feet, like beg him to talk to me and tell me what's going on, like what's happening.
It tells me about like masochistic. I had similar like patterns with my ex.
Mm-hmm.
Masochistic, it's like
You're being
belittling
punished.
you
Yeah.
punished, and then kind of like having pleasure into punishing you
Mm-hmm.
masochistically.
Because they want to be in power over you. So, and when they realize that they're breaking out of this frame that I have created, they need to like do everything they can to put you down again.
Back.
Yeah. So that was like 6 months of hell. And yes, like trying to figure out why I'm feeling so bad, you know, that whole
And then you
journey.
question yourself, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
When I'm going to expand, maybe I'm not on that level.
Yeah, like why can't I break through? Why can't I break through?
Yeah,
And
I
you're
have
like,
blockages. Come on,
it's
open
like
up.
constant meditate, like do everything you can to do your work, like look inside, journal, but it's like you're just stuck. And it was such a heavy energy, like holding me down. And the moment he told us to leave the house, I was just devastated. But in the next few days, things, like I was destroyed, but things would clear. And I'm like, I could never go back to that. I went back to the house one time for about 2 hours, and he really got under my skin, like, you know, bringing up things like, you know, the energy is going to shift now and this and that. He told me after a week, by the way, that I can no longer be in the level 2 trainings, because I thought naively, you know, that we're going to continue to co-parent, we're going to like be friends, I'm going to continue to do KAP.
Yeah.
But because
the work stays,
he wanted his new girlfriend in that workshop, he had to tell me not to come because she was uncomfortable if I was there. So I think she didn't want to come or something like this. I don't know the exact details, but he had to get rid of me because I would stop his plans of getting all these women. So, but then he
KAP
wanted
is not
to...
the same without you. How is it? Is not like people don't get it. If it's the energy is flowing, if it's this figure or that figure, it doesn't matter.
No, they think it's all the same. Like, how can you think it's all the same? Yeah.
Yeah, the ignorance. Hey guys, wake up, understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that people don't understand though, because these are people who have no experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in it as well.
And a lot of coming with the intention to control and having people laying down, and I'm just going to manipulate the energy. This is me that is causing that. A lot of people are. I see what kind of is happening in the spiritual communities.
Yeah, and how it reflects.
In kundalini activation. And when I went to Russia, it was such an surprise for me when I brought this to Russia 3 years ago. People were coming to my class, a regular open class. They were going home, and in the lineup of the services they were offering, and kundalini activation.
Yeah, just suddenly like, boom, now I'm offering this.
Yeah, and then oh my God. And those, especially those creating the marketing and doing their training, and they're like, yes,
those
let's do this
the
energy.
Most full-on people.
Yeah. Oh my God, how many people?
I'm very ashamed over where this work has gone, to be honest. I'm ashamed over the last 2 years, like where it has gone with the marketing. Like, I don't even want to tell some people what I'm doing because of the reputation of this work. And it's sad. So fucking sad, because it's the most beautiful thing. This can really, it has the potential to change humanity, the whole world. Like, that is what we can do with this. And we're just like stamping on it, and we're like making it look like it's about, you know, being goddesses, doing like...
Yeah, shaking, moving. You know, I had an interesting situation in Miami in March of last year, searching for the studio. And I was saying I'm working with energy. And they were saying, if you have anything to do with KAP or similar modalities, we don't welcome you. Yesterday I was holding in Bali the class, and the owner came to say hello, and I said, you know, like kundalini activation. She's like, and I'm like,
it has a bad reputation.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God.
Which is sad.
Yeah, and so kundalini activation facilitator is different to another kundalini activation facilitator. Not all of the people who hold the practice with the same name are working with that energy. Be aware.
Yeah, and this is what's so sad, because I see a lot of potential in
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Like people have, it's their dharma to share
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah.
At least, maybe not everyone.
No,
Like, but
no. When I've seen
but
how many people you started to train, I'm like, how do you choose them?
yeah,
Because this, I'm not sure if
it's
I
just
want to
another
be.
thing on their resume.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no.
crazy. But
It's a devotion.
I
It's
meet the
the
people who has the potential,
yeah,
but they don't even know the depth of it.
yeah.
They know like 20%, and they think that that's all this is.
And everyone is a master.
Yeah,
Everyone is the master of Kundalini
yeah,
activation.
yeah. And they are their own master.
Yeah,
But
whatever they did before, but to work with the energy to become integrated in alignment to the higher vision and serve
this
the
is
energy
also
and
copy paste.
check in with your, like with your own work,
Yeah,
like where you are. Hey,
yeah.
keep growing, keep evolving. Yeah.
This is where I want to bring this work, to do it with integrity and authenticity, and just find your own power. Don't be dependent on another person or a brand, or because that's just like creates this little prison for you, and you're not really, your gift is not really coming through. So I really want to bring people deeper and to work on themselves more, before, I mean, if you're meant to do this work, you can kind of offer it quite soon, but you still have to go through your process. There's so much to it.
It's like even accrediting those people. Now I work with training facilitators, and I've seen things. I've seen so many people who don't have pure intentions, and somehow I, for example, took them and they leave, and it's of course on them. But I know that I shouldn't have taken them in the first place, right? But I also learn, and I am trying to create that very narrow corridor for the accrediting that high level of facilitators who are really in integrity. And for some people, it needs to be like 6 months of the training, intense training before they come to Kundalini activation. Otherwise, right now, what's happening in the world is diluted like Reiki. I don't know a lot of people who are respecting Reiki as it should be respected. No. And so I've seen KAP go into that route.
I think that's what naturally happens after some time, as it grows, because you can't, and now there's like everyone is copy pasting, doing a 5-day training, and there's just like more people spit it out that doesn't really know more.
Yeah, but I also know that whatever is happening in the world has the reason for it.
Yes.
And those people are going to this training, and how many people are coming to my training after that training and they said, I never felt that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's like a
so
pre-step for them.
Way.
They will find a way in the resonance. And I was saying, you're going to stand up.
Yeah.
Feeling in your power and singing that invisible song in a frequency. And your goddesses, your people will fly into you.
Yeah. It is beautiful anyway. There's a lot of downsides to it right now, but that has its purpose, and it's beautiful how it's spreading. Like so many beautiful people are just coming into their essence. Like it's incredible to see. That's the beauty of it.
And it's a blessing of being in service to that divine energy, to that love. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Oh my God.
We did it. And to be honest, completely honest, I went so low that it was my like last nerve cell. I downloaded his WhatsApp on my iPad because I was so delusioned in illusion and confused. I needed to see the darkest things to like, Anastasia, wake up, this is who he is. You cannot just like, he cannot lie to your face anymore. And I downloaded and I was seeing that he was having sex with his assistant when I was in New York. And when I told him finally that I'm leaving, he was having conversation at the same time with 5 different women. trying to play victim, saying like, oh, please, can we meet? I just need to be heard. I just need to talk to you. And kind of like, he was always using this, he's a Jesus incarnated, and he's looking for the Magdalene. That's how I got trapped. I was thinking, I'm the Magdalene. Like in my
This
back
is classic.
then.
This was with Venant and his other girlfriend as well, and it's like you just see how it plays out. That whole
Venant
I'm
is a
Jesus.
Jesus too.
Yeah,
Like it
he's
was
also Jesus, and his girlfriend is Magdalene. Every girlfriend is Magdalene, or different versions of this,
and that's the like in DNA
And
probably, like
every
when you have
new girlfriend is his twin flame.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have this resonance in your DNA. If you were living, you have a frequency, you have markings, so you were a descendant of this trio, the Holy Family. Then your DNA is activated for that energy, and of course they're using it. Like, I'm the Jesus, you're the Magdalene. I'm like, of course I am. Let me help your mission. And then every woman is feeling that they want to be chosen ones. But I went so low. I was seeing how he was communicating with 5 different women, trying to comfort him, like being lost, and like Luna is leaving. I am a little bit like 5 different. And then he was, oh, send me the picture. Oh, send me your kitty cat thing. And then some of them were sending the seductive pictures, and then he's sharing these pictures with his friend, like dudes are sharing, like, hey, look at this.
This is hilarious. They like just like any other teenage boy.
Exactly. And then I have the screenshots of all of that, and it's like,
so you have saved
I know
this.
him. Yes, I know him like my 5 fingers. He
Yeah.
can tell you and can mask and turn around and gaslight everything, but I know how he thinks.
I
how
spent
he
fucking
speaks.
24/7 with him. I know exactly now. Maybe not when I was in it, but now I can see exactly how he works. And it's the same for every person he meets. It's the same game. And to continue on what you spoke about, I was spending time with Rio. This was just a few days before he told us to leave the house. And I still didn't realize to what extent, what he was or how he was. Suddenly in Rio's iPad, something is popping up and it's his calendar. And I'm like, oh, so he's logged into Rio's
Venant's
iPad.
calendar.
Venant's calendar is popping up and I can see his notes and his calendar. And this is how I know, because without this, I wouldn't have known to what extent his brain is working. I needed it to know what kind of person he was, because otherwise I would have still been confused and been like, oh no, he's a good person. So that was just like ripping me apart.
What was in notes that you
saw
saw
there? The first one, there's a lot. But the first one is from 2018, where it said, I see if I can remember without looking at it, because it was a while ago. It is mentioning like Venant Wong's Tantra Kundalini activation, like he was planning. And then he mentioned my name and 1 or 2 other girls' names for some reason. And this is a handwritten note that he is taking a picture of from 2018. So then it has 3 points. And the first one, and just to mention again, I'm not proud of this, but I'm also happy that I saved it.
Yeah. It was your anchor to wake up, see the real.
And this was horrible to experience. It's like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to see it. I don't want to have these secrets, and not being able to speak about it, that created such a
psychological
fight.
turmoil.
What do I do with this? Why do I get to see this? Anyway, okay. Number 1, I have to be in open relationships. Must. Number 2, I'm only energized by gorgeous women. Number 3, continuously teaching gives me a power and an authority that draws women to me easily, underlined, and they submit to me. Venant Wong Kundalini transmission. So this is the first note I found, and from here it would just like pop up crazy stuff until I couldn't take it anymore, and I logged out because I just didn't want anything. Like, it affected me a lot to see these things. It's like to find out that the person you believed in and that you were supporting, like I was supporting him, I brought people in because of being what I was, and like the guilt of that, and then this is like to